Hey everyone. Ever notice how some people just have this magnetic way of talking? They walk into a room and instantly everyone's hanging on their every word.
Like they could talk a cat out of a tree, or convince a skeptic to believe in Bigfoot.
Exactly. It's like they have this secret communication superpower. Today, we're going to unlock that power and explore the science behind these magnetic communicators.
It's not magic, though it might feel that way sometimes. One of the key elements is this fascinating concept called neurological synchronization.
Neurological synchronization. That sounds intense. Are we talking about like mind control here?
Not exactly mind control, more like a genuine connection, a meeting of the minds where you're in sync with the other person. Imagine your brains and bodies aligning, almost subconsciously.
So like some kind of mind meld.
In a way, yeah. It gets even more interesting. Scientists have discovered these mirror neurons in our brains. They fire both when we do something when we see someone else doing that same thing.
So like our brains are hardwired to mirror the people around us.
You got it. And it's not just actions, it's emotions, even thoughts. When we're really engaged in a conversation, our brains start syncing up with the other person's brainwaves. That creates this sense of connection, understanding.
So it's not just about what we say, but how we say it. Our tone of voice, the way we hold ourselves, all those unspoken cues are sending signals.
You're picking up what I'm putting down. The more we understand these dynamics, the better we communicate. Like, there's this amazing story about an FBI hostage negotiator, real high-pressure situation.
Hostage situation?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me more.
He's dealing with these scientists who are threatening to blow up a lab. Talk about high stakes.
Wow. So how did he even begin to build trust in that kind of crazy environment?
Well, he realized these scientists were brilliant, but also scared and desperate. So instead of being all tough guy cop, he matched their energy, shared personal stories, even some vulnerable ones, about his own life.
So he humanized himself, became a person, not just a badge.
Exactly. He went from a cop trying to disarm a bomb to just a fellow human being. And that changed everything. The situation de-escalated.
Powerful stuff. So even in a life or death scenario, this idea of matching can be crucial.
Absolutely. But here's the kicker. It's got to be genuine. You can't fake empathy or manipulate people into liking you. People see right through that.
Like that saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Couldn't have said it better myself. There is this other story about a CIA recruiter trying to win over a potential asset. This recruiter, at first, was all about the classic spy stuff, promises of wealth, a new life.
Playing that whole James Bond card.
You know it! But it totally backfired.
I can imagine. The potential recruit probably saw right through it. Like, yeah, right, who are you trying to fool?
Exactly. The recruiter finally realized he was coming across as totally fake, more focused on closing a deal than building a relationship. He had to change his approach completely.
So what did he do? Give up. Go back to headquarters and file a report saying, mission impossible.
No way. He got real, started sharing personal stories, finding common ground, talking about his own failures, making himself vulnerable.
Wow. So he was basically saying, hey, I'm not perfect. I mess up too.
Yeah.
But I see you. I value you.
You got it. And that vulnerability, that was the key. The potential recruit started to trust him. That trust became the foundation for a successful recruitment.
It's fascinating how this all connects back to building genuine human connection, whether you're diffusing a bomb or, just having a chat with a friend.
It all comes down to that human element. And often that starts with matching. Tuning into someone's emotions, their energy, even their body language, creates that rapport, that understanding that leads to real communication.
This is awesome stuff. But how do we use this matching power in everyday conversations? I mean, most of us aren't exactly dealing with hostage situations on a daily basis.
That's a great question, and that's exactly what we're going to dive into next. These principles of matching and building rapport, they apply to everything. Casual chats with friends, high-stakes business deals, you name it.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's unlock those secrets.
Let's do it. Okay, so let's dive into this idea of the quiet negotiation that happens in every conversation.
Quiet negotiation. Sounds kind of like a spy thriller. What's that all about?
Well, it's not about espionage, but it is subtle. Think of it as this unspoken dance we do, figuring out the what and the how of talking to each other.
The what's and the how. Give me an example.
Sure. Imagine a team trying to have a better meeting, right? So they decide on this simple thing. Before the meeting even starts, everyone writes down their goals, what they want to achieve.
So instead of just jumping into the agenda, they take a minute to get clear on what they're hoping for.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is Just writing those goals down, even if they don't share them out loud, it makes a huge difference. Fewer arguments, everyone feels heard. Like it sets a more collaborative vibe from the get-go.
It's like they're establishing the ground rules for the conversation, even without saying them out loud.
You got it. And this isn't just for meetings, it's for any conversation, really. Like, think about a doctor trying to help a patient make a tough decision about treatment.
Oh yeah, like when there are multiple options and they all have pros and cons, and it's a really emotional decision.
Exactly. The doctor might be focused on the data, the logic of it all, but the patient is dealing with fear, uncertainty. It's like they're having two totally different conversations.
Oh, I see what you mean. So the doctor needs to tune into that emotional reality before the medical facts can even sink in.
Exactly. Acknowledge the fear, validate those concerns, build that trust. Only then can the real conversation happen.
So sometimes this quiet negotiation is about figuring out the emotional stuff first, then tackling the practical stuff.
Often, yeah. There's this great story about a juror, part of a jury deciding a case. This juror, he was amazing at that quiet negotiation. He realized that figuring out what his fellow jurors really wanted deep down was more important than their initial vote.
He was like a conversation detective, uncovering the hidden motives.
He was. And how he did it was by asking really insightful questions, not just guilty or not guilty, but stuff like, what does justice mean to you? Or what evidence really stood out?
Wow, he was getting to the heart of their values, their gut feeling.
And by doing that, he totally shifted the whole jury deliberation. They connected on this deeper level. And the verdict they reached, totally unexpected.
That's incredible, just by asking the right questions. But how do we even know what those questions are? Is there like a secret formula for these deep conversations?
No magic formula, but there are some types of questions that work wonders. Instead of that surface level stuff like, what do you do? Try asking, how did you end up doing that? Or what gets you fired up about your work?
You're digging deeper, getting at their values, their passions.
Yep. Those kinds of questions, they invite people to open up, share their stories, be vulnerable.
It's like that 36 questions that lead to love thing, asking vulnerable questions,
Yeah.
sharing personal stories. But that's about romance, right? Does it really apply to everyday conversations?
Great question. While those 36 questions were for a specific study, the idea behind them totally works anywhere. Vulnerability, being real, sharing our experiences, that helps us connect on a deeper level, no matter what we're talking about.
And those follow-up questions, those are crucial, right? Showing you're truly listening, you care about what they're saying.
Absolutely. Follow-up questions, they encourage the other person to share more, to reciprocate. It shows you value what they have to say.
Okay, so we've got this matching, the quiet negotiation, asking deeper questions. But what about all the nonverbal stuff? The mood, the energy, all those vibes.
Oh, those are huge E.
Yeah.
We're constantly picking up on each other's mood, whether it's positive or negative, and their energy level. Like, are they high-strung or relaxed? It's like we have this emotional radar that's always scanning the room.
And we're doing all this subconsciously most of the time, right?
Most of the time, yeah. But being aware of it, that's where the magic happens. When you consciously choose how to respond, that's when you can really influence the conversation.
So like if someone's telling a story and they're super excited, you match that energy even if you don't personally care about the topic.
Bingo. It shows you're present, you're engaged, you're trying to see the world from their point of view.
It all comes back to that empathy thing, right?
Right. And there's this cool story about a NASA astronaut selector.
No way, really. I gotta hear this.
So he's listening to these recordings of interviews, but he's specifically paying attention to how the candidates laugh.
Their laugh. What, was he looking for a stand-up comedian to send to space?
Not exactly. He wanted to see if their laughter matched HIS. Like, was it a genuine connection? He knew that being able to build rapport and work together was crucial up there in space.
That makes sense. So he was looking for emotional intelligence, not just technical skills.
Exactly. And this whole mood and energy thing, it's not just for serious conversations. Think about humor. Comedy relies on matching energy all the time.
Oh yeah, like that high scene from Big Bang Theory
Mhm.
with Sheldon and Penny at the door. It was so awkward, but the way they kept escalating the high, you could tell they all wanted to connect, even though they were totally fumbling it.
Exactly. The audience got it because the actors matched each other's energy, even though the words themselves were just hi, hi, hi.
Amazing how much those nonverbal cues can communicate.
Yeah.
But what about when things get heated? When there's conflict? How do we keep things from blowing up?
That's where it gets really interesting. Remember, conflict has two levels, the actual issue and then all the emotions underneath.
So You can be arguing about whose turn it is to do the dishes, but the real fight is about feeling unappreciated or overwhelmed.
You nailed it. And if you ignore those underlying emotions, it's like pouring gasoline on a fire.
So acknowledging those emotions is like turning down the heat.
You got it. There's this great example. This group brought together gun rights advocates and gun control supporters, tried to get them to have a civil conversation, and it actually worked.
Whoa, seriously, how'd they even get those two groups in the same room, let alone talking civilly?
They started by focusing on shared experiences, vulnerability, not just arguing points. They shared stories about their own encounters with gun violence, their fears, their hopes for a safer world.
So they built that empathy before jumping into the policy debate.
Exactly. By acknowledging those shared emotions, they created space for real dialogue, even if they didn't agree on everything in the end.
Okay, that makes sense. But online, it's a whole different ballgame, right? We don't have those non-verbal cues. It's like everyone's just throwing digital grenades.
It's true. Online, it's so easy to misinterpret tone, intent.
So how do we apply all this matching and emotional intelligence stuff to the wild west of the internet?
There are a few things that research shows can help. First, really emphasize being polite. Please, thank you. Even in heated debates, it can really de-escalate things.
Because it shows respect, even when you totally disagree.
Exactly. Second, go easy on the sarcasm. Sarcasm needs tone of voice, facial expressions, which don't always translate in text. It's too easy for it to backfire and make things worse.
And if you have to use sarcasm, maybe add a winky face, just to be safe.
Uh-huh. Well, a winky face might help, but honestly, it's probably best to avoid sarcasm online altogether.
Noted. What else can we do?
Express more gratitude, show deference, even apologize when needed. It just softens the interaction.
So instead of, you're wrong, it's more like, I appreciate your perspective, but I see things differently.
Exactly. And lastly, avoid public criticism. Negative feedback, especially in a public forum, almost always backfires online. It just breeds more negativity.
Like a negativity spiral. Once it starts, it's hard to stop.
You got it. So even though online we don't have all those nonverbal cues, being mindful of the emotional landscape and how we communicate can make a world of difference.
Okay, we've covered a lot. Matching emotions, navigating conflict. But what about those bigger, thornier conversations about like who we are, our identities, our beliefs, the groups we belong to?
Ugh, the who are we conversation. Those can be tough, but they can also be the most rewarding.
Because they get at our core, right? How we see ourselves in the world around us.
Exactly. And those identities, the groups we belong to, the values we hold, they massively influence how we communicate and how we perceive things.
So it's like we're all wearing different team jerseys. And sometimes those jerseys cause friction.
Yep. Sometimes those jerseys lead to misunderstandings, conflict. But realizing that we all have multiple identities and understanding how those shape our views, that's when we can communicate better.
It's like remembering that we're all complex individuals, not just walking stereotypes. We're more than just our team jerseys.
Exactly. And sometimes just remembering that simple fact can de-escalate a tense situation.
Okay, we've talked about matching, those quiet negotiations, and how our identities shape our conversations. But let's be real, sometimes, even when we try our best, we mess up.
Oh, yeah. Those moments when you realize you said something totally clueless or even offensive.
Exactly, like foot and mouth moments. How do you recover from that?
Ugh, those are the worst. The key is to handle them with grace, a little humility. First thing, acknowledge the mistake. Don't try to pretend it didn't happen.
So own it. Say, yep, I screwed up.
Pretty much. Something like, I realize that was offensive and I apologize, goes a long way. And be sincere about it. People can tell when you're not really sorry.
Okay, own the mistake. Apologize like you mean it. But what if you didn't intend to be offensive? Like, you just worded something badly or tried to be funny and it flopped.
Yeah, that happens too. In those cases, explain your intent. Say something like, I didn't mean to offend you. What I was trying to say was fuss.
So you're giving them context, but you're also acknowledging that their feelings are valid, even if you didn't mean to hurt them.
Exactly. And then, this is the most important part, listen to their response. Don't get defensive or try to explain away their feelings. Just really listen.
It's like you're saying, I messed up. Help me understand how to do better.
Yes. And that willingness to learn, to grow, that's what builds stronger relationships.
This has been eye-opening. We've covered so much, from the science of those mirror neurons to navigating those really tricky conversations. It's like we've been on this journey into the secret world of communication.
And remember, it's a skill. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. The more we practice these techniques, the more natural they become.
So to everyone listening, keep practicing, keep exploring, keep having those conversations that matter.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into how we connect as humans. We'll see you next time.